Hello, operator. Can you please connect me with OTR Halloween Holidays? I don't want to miss this episode of the Bah Ghoulie Show.
In the dream, you are falling, lost in the listening distance, as dark locks in. Nightfall. Good evening. Tonight, in honor of an occasion that's dear to us all, we're presenting a special love story for lovers of all ages. The play, based on the short story by Robert Iclone, is called Ringing the Changes.
When an older man takes a very young wife, he can't be quite so easygoing about it as your average husband. The haphazard is replaced with much deep planning, with special little schemes to wall in happiness. So my wife and I decided that our honeymoon would be our own invention, at no one else's time or place. Instead of June, we were married on the last day of October. And late that very afternoon, we reached what we were sure was a dream retreat for us alone. An old-world village on the East Coast. Holy Haven was so forgotten and obscure, we were astonished to find a tiny branch-line train still ran there. A village at the end of things, we said. Perhaps they tried to warn us. The dead leaves stirred by the crawling train, even the sullen station master. But Fryn and I paid no attention. We had no sense that past the end of things lay horror. I think the railway company is as surprised as we are, darling. But we're here.
Exhaustion makes you cynical, Gerald. Do remember the bags.
I'm not that old.
Sir, madam.
Good afternoon.
I'm afraid you've made a mistake. Castle Eye is the next station on the line. This is Holy Haven.
And this is exactly where we're meant to be.
There's no mistake. Our tickets are for Holy Haven here.
You'd best come inside.
Rather grand station for such an empty place. Bit like one's grandmother all dressed for party and nobody came.
We're here, darling. Party of two.
Too many for them. Look at the porter.
Well, who are they?
Visitors.
Tonight?
Well, that's what the tickets say. Have you a room booked?
Yes, the Bell Hotel.
The Bell. Tonight of all nights.
It's them Pascos.
Yes, that's the name. Pasco.
We don't use the Bell, but you'll find it in Rack Street. Straight ahead, down Station Road. Then down Rack Street. You can't miss it.
Thank you. I wanted to be... Oh, isn't the bells?
They're starting early.
Every reason to be in good time.
It's very slow. I hope it's not... What do you call it? A passing bell?
Passing?
Why, no, ma'am. Not a passing bell exactly. More like calling.
Yes. Is there someone who could take our bags to the hotel?
We don't go to the Bell.
I see. Well, I'm sure we can walk. Come on, friend. And thank you for being so helpful.
You're welcome.
I'll say one thing to you, not a word more.
Yes?
There'll be more bells.
I suppose they have to practice sometime.
We like church bells, we do, really.
It's not the ringing. It's when they stop.
Well?
When the bells stop, you go and lock yourselves away. As far away as you can. For so long as you may.
What horrible old men. I know we wanted to get away from all that grand hotel bowing and scraping, but... do you think we overdid it?
Mustn't blame them too much. We're probably the only visitors they've had all year. They have to practice their local colour on somebody, huh? When the year's bells stop, run thee and I.
Speaking of hiding, where's everybody got to? It's not 6 o'clock yet, and the place is like a tomb.
Where's the hotel got to?
Poor Gerald. Let me help.
I'm quite all right, thank you.
Oh, don't go all stiff upper lip on me. I married you because you were too old to take yourself seriously. You weren't at all like those 1,000-year-old boys I had to go to dances with.
Never too old to stuff a shirt.
Well, the station master said there'd be more. I wish they'd play God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen or something.
Yes, it does sound funereal. Listen. There's a faint echo.
All these narrow stone streets, I should think.
Yeah. They follow the lines of the medieval city. Before the rivers silted up, these towns were some of the most important seaports in England. Now, they're preserved under glass.
Oh, it's like an empty stage set. I wonder what happens when the curtain goes up.
Friend.
What is it?
Look. We just passed it. Our hotel. See, the bell over the door.
Oh, thank God. However did we do that?
Lord knows.
At least it's not cold.
Well, the East Coast and this time of the year is incredibly warm.
You know, I think it's getting warmer.
Yes?
Mrs. Pascoe?
Yes?
I'm Gerald Horsted, and this is my wife, Fryn. We have reservations for the hotel tonight?
No. Not tonight.
Mrs. Pascoe, I have a reservation for the Bell Hotel in Holy Haven, confirmed to our agent in London by telephone in the name of D. Pascoe, here.
Oh, God. Don did this.
Don?
My husband. He's not very well.
Mrs. Pascoe, we have reservations here. The last train has gone, and we may not be very well either if we spend the night in the street.
God, no, you can't do that. You mustn't stay in the street. Come in, quickly.
Thank you. I think we'd better.
I'm sorry your husband's unwell, Mrs. Pascoe.
You know what men are like when they're ill.
Impossible. Or very difficult.
It's his stomach. He takes things for it. Sometimes he takes too much.
Oh, I see.
No, you don't. But you may. You'd better sign the register.
The last entry is quite a long time ago.
We're always quiet here.
We did want to come out of season.
Out of season. Quite. Sign here, please.
Are we alone in the house?
Except for Commandant Shotcroft. You won't mind him, will you? He's a regular.
I'm sure we shan't.
People say the house wouldn't be the same without the Commandant.
I'm sure. Do you mind telling us what those bells are?
Practice.
So many at once?
They have ways of their own in Holy Haven. Here's your key. Room number 7. If you'll excuse me, I have to see Darden. Dinner's at 7:30. You have time for a drink in the bar first.
We certainly have. It's only just 6.
Actually, I like church bells.
All very well. But on one's honeymoon, they distract the attention.
Not mine.
You want to see the room?
Not yet. And I don't want to drink. I want to see the ocean while there's still light.
Anything to get away from the bells. Let's go. And find the sea.
Gerald!
What is it?
Not what is it? Where is it? It's dark already. Where's the sea?
Well, they must keep it somewhere. These weeds and great bloody rocks can't go on forever.
You can certainly smell it. Honest sea smell.
If you say so. I don't ever remember it so strong.
Come out, wherever you are.
Friend? Darling? Friend! Friend! Where are you? Friend, for God's sake!
Sorry, darling. Panic over.
Oh, what the hell happened?
I stood on something.
You're all right?
Think so.
Oh, the smell's worse than ever.
I think it's coming from what I stepped on. My foot went right in, and then there was the smell.
I never knew anything like it. Please, darling, let's go back.
All right. But I must warn you, I'm very disappointed. I think that seaside attractions should include the sea.
Take my arm, darling. Gently now.
Look how far away the lights of the town are.
Yes. There isn't a sea.
Gerald? Listen to the bells.
It can't be.
They're coming from all the churches, aren't they?
Impossible. All the churches on the same night?
I'm quite sure. I can hear one lot of bells with my right ear and another with my left.
Friend? What do you think it was you stepped on?
It was something soft. Something soft and... And bone. All things considered, darling, the food might have been worse. And the bedroom is beautiful.
Ah.
Do you know I've never slept in a four-poster?
I don't know how we'll sleep in anything with that damn noise.
It's going to stop, remember? They promised us. And anyway, what makes you think you're going to sleep? Meantime, I want a nightcap.
I'll bring it to you on the lounge. Sure.
Kümmel, I think.
Uh-huh.
If either of them are sober enough to pour.
I'll steal some and charge it to the invisible commandant. Well then, bar unattended. Landlord! Service! Kellner! Anybody home? Good God. Mr. Pascoe, I presume. Gone? A double cognac and a tumble, please. And if it's not too much to ask...
Wait. Wait.
Oh, oops, Daisy. I think, Mr. Pascoe, you'd better let me pour. Since I don't see any more brandy, I guess it's 2 cumels.
Fool.
Yes, well, perhaps, but I'm not a thief, Mr. Pascoe. I'll remind your wife to add them to the bill in the morning.
Run! Run!
What?
Run!
Oh, frankly, there's nothing I'd like better, Mr. Pascoe. But I see no way until morning. And if you'll excuse me, I'd better go and see to my wife whom I got into this bloody mess in the first place.
Run!
I'm sorry, darling. I got involved with the ineffable Don. Lord, it's dark in here. Where are you?
Lower your voice, Mr. Halstead.
What?
Speak more softly. Your wife has fallen asleep by the fire. You should not have left her alone.
She seems to have had a guardian. I presume you are Commandant Shotcroft.
No need to presume.
Thank you for your concern. I had a run-in with our drunken host.
He was a fine man once. Don't think otherwise.
Not my type.
DSO and Bah. DFC and Bah.
And now bar only, eh? Why?
He got into trouble. He wasn't the kind of man to know about human nature and all its rottenness.
Pity. But even so, isn't this the best place for him?
The worst. For him or anyone else.
Certainly a damn noisy place.
Why did you have to come tonight of all nights?
This doesn't happen often?
Once every year.
Ah, they should have told us.
They don't usually accept bookings. When Pascoe was himself, they never did.
How can she control him now?
A woman try to control a man.
Does she have an alternative?
At heart, women are creatures of darkness all the time. Take her away, man.
In a day or two, when...
Now. Now there's still time. This instant.
They can hardly go on practicing all night.
Practicing?
And what are they doing?
They're ringing to wake the dead.
That's a figure of speech.
In Holy Haven, on this night of the year, on All Hallows Eve.
Halloween? Jack-o'-lanterns, witches...
Fool! Look at your wife. You see? She hears them in her sleep.
What happens?
No one can tell how long they have to go on ringing. It varies from year to year. You should be all right for another half hour or so. In the end, the dead awake. First, 1 or 2. Then, all of them.
And the sea?
Draws back. You've seen it yourself, then. In a place like this, there are always several drowned each year, but that's only a few. Most of them come not from the water, but from the earth. It is not a pretty sight.
Where do they go?
Do you think I'd follow them to find out?
You advise me to go. Where?
Where doesn't matter.
I have no car.
Then you'd better walk with her. She's young and strong. She's 20 years younger than you. And therefore 20 years more important.
What about you?
I've lived here a long time now. I know what to do.
And the Pascos?
He's drunk. There's nothing in or out of the world to fear if you're thoroughly drunk. Your wife is wakening. I don't think there's anything more to say. You should still have time.
You make me wish I had a Bible.
Isaiah might be useful.
Repent, O Jerusalem, eh?
I had a more specific verse in mind. The satyr shall cry to his fellow. Good night, Mr. Halstead.
Hello, Gerald. Oh, what fun. The bells are still ringing.
Ren, come away. Come away at once. We're leaving here now.
But now, what about our bags? What about...
Never mind the bags. Leave everything. Just pray the front door isn't padlocked. Hurry! For God's sakes, hurry! Only one bolt! Time! Still time! Ah!
Listen to the bells. They're like plunging horses in the sky.
Which way did you come? I can't... The bells. They've stopped.
Where are my bells?
Why? Why did they stop?
The dead are awake.
Too late.
The dead are awake.
We're too late.
The dead are awake.
The bells are gone.
Oh, merciful God!
What was that? That just ran down the street.
You didn't see it, did you?
A man, I think. Very dark. And holding some kind of cloth over his head.
That's all you saw?
I think so.
Thank God. Get in. Get in here quickly.
Where can we go?
Our room. It's the only place left. Our room. And lock everything we can between. The Commandant warned me. I should have gone.
Nowhere to go. I don't expect they'll trouble us.
Where's the damn light? This dark is worse than anything. Yeah, the current's gone. Nothing to see till daylight.
Gerald, don't leave me.
I'm right here, darling. We'll wait it out no matter what happens.
Listen.
My God.
They're coming. They're coming here.
Get a grip on yourself. They don't want us. We don't belong here.
That's why they're coming.
Friend, it's only fear. It's extraordinary how frightened one can be, even when one knows there's no direct menace, none.
No menace?
We'll think of something else.
Do you think we can?
Of course we can. It's only till tomorrow.
They can't be actually dangerous, or it would be stopped.
Of course, of course.
They've broken the street door. They're in the hotel.
Stay quiet. For God's sakes, stay quiet.
They're coming up the stairs.
Shut up. Shut up. They'll hear us.
What do the dead hear, Gerald? What do they hear? The smell! Oh, God! Now's the time. Now's the place. Now's the weather. The living and the dead dance together. Now's the time.
The next I knew, there was light in the windows, and the wrecked bedroom was empty, How I got downstairs, I don't know. But there she was. Her nightdress was so torn that she was almost naked.
Darling, look at you.
Look at me. Oh, my darling.
Here I am. Not to worry.
We're not going to talk about it now. You must be in shock. We'll walk to the main road and flag a car. For God's sakes, take my raincoat. You can't go trumping the countryside looking like something from the Folies Bergère. In Rack Street, a milkman was delivering as we passed, but his cart bore the name of another town. When we reached the station road, we saw a small plot of land on which already men were silently at work with spades in their hands. We missed it last night, but in the grey light, we saw a signboard. New Municipal Cemetery. The diggers were as thick as flies on a wound, and as black. Don't look, friend. Turn your head. Don't look.
Why, darling? Why ever not?
She spoke to me, but looked at them. And I stared at her hard for a moment. Then once more, she became herself. In those few seconds, I became aware of something dividing us, which neither of us would ever mention or forget.
Hey, Ghoulies! Hope you're enjoying today's radio show. If you're still up afterward, join us over at Channel Watchwaddle for our midnight spook show screening of The Haunted Skeletons. It'll scare you to the bone. For now, enjoy the rest of the radio program. Hope you're enjoying today's radio program. When it's done, be sure to check out our channel over at Watchwaddle. Enjoy some tunes with a nice cold soda.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. The American Broadcasting Company presents Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper, and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet, Please for today is called Calling All Souls. I tell you what happened last Halloween, or All Souls, or All Hallows, or whatever you call it in your part of the country. I bet you can't guess where I was. Well, I was a couple of places. But where I started, I was sitting in a tight little room in a great big house. You ever been west? Well, you know when you cross the Mississippi River on the Santa Fe from Illinois to Iowa, about 4 or 5 hours out of Chicago, Fort Madison, Iowa? Ever notice that great big place right alongside the riverbank to your right? The big high walls and the towers and the big gates? That's right, the Iowa State Prison. That's where I was last Halloween. In a little cell. Oh, very comfortable. All by myself. Waiting. And not much more time to wait. Sure. The death cell. I was just sitting there playing solitaire on the edge of my bed, trying not to think of what was coming up and thinking of nothing else but that. I was pretending I'd paid the house $52 for the deck, and the house would pay off $5 for every card I got in the top row. I was $32 to the good this particular hand. I didn't hear anybody come up. I didn't hear anybody except the guard walking around. Till this voice spoke to me.
Red 9 on the 10 of clubs, Louis.
Oh. Hello, Delbert. Yeah, that's right. Coming in?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right. So far. How are you?
All right.
Sit down.
Yeah.
No soap, huh? Turn this down.
That's right.
What'd he say?
Oh, a lot of things.
What?
What's the difference? He said no.
It's tough, Delbert, when I didn't do it.
It's tough on me, too, Louis.
Yes, but they're not going to hang you.
I begged him to give you a 2-week stay at least, but he said his conscience wouldn't let him.
Conscience, huh?
He said if he felt I could turn up anything at all in 2 weeks, he'd be tempted to give you the benefit of the doubt. You've had 3 stays now.
Could you turn up anything?
Louis.
Yeah, I know.
I've done everything I could.
I know. But I didn't do it, Delbert.
I know you didn't. But proving it.
You want to play cards? I guess I don't want to play either. Well,
I've done my very best, Louis. My very level best.
I know. It's pretty tough on me, though. Ain't it?
Certainly is.
No hope at all?
No hope at all. No witnesses, plenty of motive, your fingerprints all over everything?
I remember. Only I didn't do it.
Who did? You got any idea, Louis?
No idea at all.
I thought maybe.
I just opened the door after I'd knocked a dozen times. I just opened the door, and they were on the floor, I told you.
I know.
And I was so shocked. You know, I couldn't help it. I tried to... That's how I got the fingerprints all over.
You told me.
I admit I didn't like Harris. I didn't go for Etta very much either. But I didn't kill him, Delbert.
You told me.
I just went out there to ask him to let me have however much he could of that $2,000 he owed me for the pigs.
You should have made all those statements about how you were going to get the money or else.
I know it. He shouldn't have gone through his desk looking for the money either.
I don't know why the dickens you did that.
Well, I don't know either, but I said I was shocked. I just thought this was a good way to get the money if I could find it. Nobody would know, I figured. I knew if I didn't get it then, I'd never get it. They were lying there on the floor.
Louis, listen, it was pretty hard to convince a jury you didn't do it with them lying on the floor and you going through the desk and blood spots on your suit and everything.
I know it, Delbert. I was crazy to do it. But I didn't murder him.
I know that, I told you.
Delbert, are they sure not going to hang me?
Unless
what?
they discover new evidence.
Where are they going to discover that?
They'll have to do it awful fast.
Where are they going to discover it?
You tell me.
There isn't any more evidence.
never really did it. Covered his tracks too good.
I'll say he did. Oh, you smooched it up fooling around?
Oh, my gosh, Delbert, I was just trying to see if I could help.
And seeing if you could find the money Harris owed you.
Well, I know it was foolish, but...
Honestly, Lewis, now, you wouldn't expect anybody in his right mind to believe your story.
But it's
would you?
true, I tell you.
I know it's true, but I couldn't make the jury believe it. Or the governor.
How do you know it's true?
What?
How do you know it's true?
Why, I just know it, Lewis. I've seen murderers before, you know.
You don't think I'm a murderer?
Of course not.
Delbert, don't you really think there's a chance of uncovering some new evidence? Really?
I think the only people who saw the murder, the only people who know who did it, are Harris and Etta themselves.
But they're dead.
That's right. They're dead, Lewis. Look, what I stopped in for, you want me to ask Father McIntyre to come round and see you now?
13 steps up with your hands fastened behind you. 13 steps. Stop and turn around. The man says, stand here. Look down the 13 steps at the reporters, the doctor with a stethoscope hanging around his neck. Feel a man tying your feet together. Feel the floor give a little underfoot. See how the man stays away from the little trapdoor, reaching out to make the rope tight around your ankles. Listen. Father McIntyre's voice in your ear. A little rustling behind you and a black hood over your head and you can't see anymore. But you can feel the rope as it brushes against your neck, a little hairy and creepy crawly on your skin. The weight of the knot, 9 turns on your shoulder. The floor gives a little underfoot. No, I can't. I can't. I thought I didn't do it. I tell you, I didn't do it. All I could think of was what my lawyer said, what Delbert said before he got up and opened the door and went away.
The only people who saw the murder, the only people who know who did it, are Harris and Etta themselves.
And Harris and Etta knew I didn't do it. Maybe they didn't know who it was that did it, but they did know that I didn't do it. Maybe they didn't. And maybe they did. Maybe they did know. Maybe they could tell me. Maybe they could discover some new evidence, the way Delbert put it. Maybe they could tell me where to go, who to look for, what I'd find. I could tell it all to Delbert. He could go tell the governor. I'd get a stay. Maybe the evidence would be good enough so they'd let me go. Maybe they wouldn't hang. But Harris is dead. And Etta's dead. I saw them dead on the floor of their house when I went. And they accused me of murdering them. They found me guilty. I'm in the death cell, waiting. Harris, Etta, don't let me die. Don't let them. Etta, Harris, have mercy on my soul. And when I heard the bell tolling somewhere in the distance, I remembered. I remembered what night this was. This was All Souls' Night. This was the night when the souls of the weary dead walked the earth again. I remembered when graveyards yawn and tombs give up their dead. And the sound of the bell tolling away in the darkness of early evening. Calling all souls. Calling all souls. And I wondered if my soul had to leave my body when I walked up the 13 steps and after, if my soul had to leave my body then, why could it not leave my living body for a while and go seeking after the others that stepped from the tomb this night? The souls of the weary dead, The souls of the unhappy dead, the murdered, the kindly souls that knew. Then I sat down again quietly. The fit of deadly terror was gone for a moment. I was exhausted and weak. I closed my eyes and the sound of the distant bell faded out as I thought. Why can't it be possible, I thought. All these things are not mere superstition. There's some foundation in every belief, I thought. I can't die. I'm innocent, I thought. And only those two know the truth. Calling all souls. I repeated again to myself. Calling all souls. And I stood up. I stood up in that brightly lighted, sorrowful place. And as I rose, I turned to look behind me. And there, on the bed, still in an attitude of despair, sat my body. And in a flash of darkness, the place faded away, the stone walls and the iron bars and the bare, narrow bed, the man in prison uniform seated motionless on its edge. And I stood alone in the darkness of a place I knew. Tall marble shafts gleaming faintly in the starlight. Curving gravel roadways hedge-bordered. The scent of moldering flowers in the darkness. The dry rustle of a weather-beaten flag at the head of a low mound beside me. And loneliness. All aloneness pressing inward upon me like a living thing. The eve of All Souls. And suddenly, quietly in the cold shadows, little whispers of innumerable voices. The voices of the wandering souls that hastened past me, seeking their dusty desires across the face of the world they once all knew. And then a voice, speaking to me in the dark, speaking my name in the darkness, calling me.
Louis!
And another voice.
Louis!
And I knew I had won, for these were the voices of the two they said I murdered.
Why, of course you didn't, Louis.
Of course you didn't.
And a little child, a little boy, ran up in the darkness and took my hand and laughed to hear my name.
You remember little Tommy, our little boy that died when he was sick?
And I remembered. And in the darkness I saw many another I'd all but forgotten. Charlie Cullum that was killed at Romaine in the Argonne 30 years ago. Albert Newhouse, my Boy Scout comrade that drowned so many years ago. Grace Williams, who died at her husband's hand. Crowds and crowds of the ones who had gone before, spending this, their brief holiday on their well-loved earth. And I, the only living soul among them, spending my brief moment with them to seek my life from them. On All Souls' Eve a year ago. And I said, help me. And Etta answered me.
What is there we can do now, Louis?
You know I didn't kill you, Etta.
Of course.
Of course.
They're going to hang me for it.
You didn't do it.
But how can I prove it? Delbert said if we could find new evidence.
There's plenty of evidence, Louis, to be found.
Where? How?
Why, let me see. He found the money.
That's why you couldn't find it, Louis.
But if he found the money, it must be gone by now.
No, he has some of it left.
What good does that do?
Why, there's a list of the numbers of the bills somewhere.
They looked for it. They couldn't find it.
Have them look in the bedroom, Louis, behind the third drawer in my chest of drawers. I know where it is. It fell down there.
Oh, that's wonderful. But what good will it do now? Unless you tell me.
There's plenty of evidence, Louis, if you'll just look for it. He ripped his coat on the catch of the living room door. There's threads there that could be identified.
You know who did it? You know who did it?
Yes, we know.
Yes, we know.
Then tell me. Tell me, and I'll see. Delbert will see that he confesses. Look, I tell you, they're going to hang me for it. Do you hear? Tell me. Oh. And you still hate me. And you haven't learned mercy since you... You're going to let me die because you hated me while you were alive.
Louis.
You're going to carry it beyond the grave. You're going to keep it to yourself and let me hang.
You hated us, Louis.
Yes, I hated you and I hate you now. Ghost or no ghost, soul or no soul, I hate... No, Harris, have pity on me. It's all over now. There's no use hating me. Don't you hate the man that killed you? Don't you?
No, Louis, no.
We don't hate him.
But you hate me. You're going to let me die. You know I'm innocent. You're going to let me die just because we didn't like each other on Earth.
Louis, listen to us. There's no such thing as hate anymore with us.
Then why don't you give me a chance to live?
Go back, Louis. Go back to your body.
Go back.
Go back. To die.
Dying isn't so bad, Louis. You don't see any unhappiness among all these souls, do you?
I don't want to die.
You'd rather save your life for a while at the expense of somebody else's life?
But I'm not guilty. And he is.
Go back, Louis.
Go back.
I won't go back till you tell me who killed you.
Listen to me, Louis. You're tampering with things that you have no right to know. Your soul has left your body before its time. You have come upon secrets that no living man should know. Your body is waiting for you. Go back to it while there's time.
While there's time.
It is only this one night that souls may walk the earth.
And when morning comes, well, when morning comes, if you are still here, Louis, I can make you no promises.
Go back, Louis.
Tell me the man's name.
No, Louis, no, it's none of your affair.
None of my affair. Don't you understand what I said to you? They're going to hang me. None of my affair. Listen.
There was no need for you to send your soul out seeking us, Louis.
I don't get that.
We have been waiting for this night, Louis.
Well?
Tell him, Harris.
He will have to come with us now.
Yes, that is the law.
You should not have come here. Louis, there is still time, but only a little time. If you go back now...
I won't go back. I won't go back until you tell me.
You have no right here, you know, Louis.
But I'm here.
And now it is too late.
Yes.
You will have to come with us.
Where are you going?
Tell him, Harris.
We are going to visit the man who murdered us.
You what?
I told you there was no need for you to come here, Louis. We have a way of taking care of this man.
I don't know what you mean.
Haven't you ever heard of haunting, Louis?
Come with us now, Louis.
No.
You must come.
You're really going to haunt him? And make him confess?
We are going to appear to him, Louis.
What he will do, we cannot say.
But when he sees us...
Well, then I'm going back to the prison.
No.
I'll go back and I'll call the warden. I'll get Delbert. Tell him that there'll be a confession. Delbert will get me a stay of execution. Then when he confesses, I'll be... Who is it, Harris?
Come with us and you will see.
No, I'm going back to the prison. I told you, get things all set up.
No, you changed your mind too late, Louis.
Too late? Why?
No, Louis. You have meddled too much. You have gone too far. The souls of the living have no place here. But you have come.
We told you to go back while there was time, Louis.
Yes, but...
Now you must come with us.
No, I want to go back.
Come, Louis.
High up over the face of the sleeping, starlit world with the tiny lights of the living far below us. The broad, peaceful farmlands, the sleeping cities, the broad breast of the great river far below us. The universe throbbing with strange, compelling song. And above us, around us, the sense of a million souls. A million, a myriad, a countless multitude, returning joyously to their single night upon the earth they loved. And I looked up in the clearness of the haunted night, and above me, the endless pathway of the Milky Way glowed with a strange splendor. And Etta plucked my sleeve.
The pathway of the souls, Louis. The way we all return.
And I saw the features of the ones I had loved. Of strangers. Of men and women and little children. Of boys in ragged uniforms. Of bearded ancients and smiling babes in their mothers' arms. And on their faces in the sparkling night an expression of awful eagerness. Of long-awaited realization that this night they would once again rest upon the mortal earth. And even I, the only living soul amongst all the multitude of the dead, even I felt an overpowering desire to set my feet again this moment upon the reality of earth. And I closed my eyes for a moment. And when I opened them, we three were in a room. And on a bed there was a sleeping man. Where are we? Is this the man?
This is the man.
This is the man.
Who is he?
Go and look.
No.
Go and look.
I don't want to.
Go and look, Louis.
You must go and look, Louis.
He lay there, sleeping as innocently as any child. The covers were drawn up about his face as if he were shutting out some childish fancy of boogeymen in the dark. But I knew him for a wicked, guilty man. The man who held my own life in jeopardy.
Look at him, Louis.
Look at him, Louis.
And I lifted up the comforter that hid his face and bent down to look at him. Delbert, my friend. The man who had defended me in the courtroom and lost. The man who had gone to the governor, or had he gone, to plead for my life. Delbert, the man who told me, of course I know you didn't do it. Of course he knew. He alone of mortal men knew the murderer. For the defender of the accused man was the murderer himself.
Wake him, Louis.
No.
Wake him.
Delbert. Delbert. Delbert, wake up.
Louis! Louis, what are you doing here? He came with us, Delbert. Harris!
Harris and Etta, Delbert.
No! Now go away! You're a ghost! We are human souls, Delbert. Come to hear your testimony. No! No, I won't tell you anything!
You murdered them, didn't you, Delbert?
No! You murdered us, Delbert. No, I...
Confess, Delbert.
I didn't do it!
You did do it.
You, Louis! You can't be here!
Confess.
Well, I...
Confess.
Louis must hear you, Delbert.
Louis! Louis, I did do it. I killed them, Louis. I murdered them. I knew I could throw the blame on you. I knew I could get you convicted and I could save myself. I hated them too, Louis. Oh, Louis. Louis, forgive me. Louis, forgive me.
Me forgive you, Delbert? Ask Harris and Etta to forgive you.
Harris. Etta.
We have already forgiven you, Delbert. But you have done a great wrong to Louis.
You will be punished, Delbert.
I'll confess. I'll fall to prison.
I'm going back to my body now in the prison.
Louis.
Thank you.
Forgive me.
Thank you, Harris. Etta.
Louis.
I'm going back. Oh, Harris, you...
Wait, Louis.
What?
Louis.
Be quiet, murderer. What, Harris?
You can't go back, Louis.
I can't go back. Why? What have I... What?
You must stay.
Stay? Stay? Why must I stay? My body's back there in the prison waiting for me. I've got to go back and live.
No, Louis.
Why? Tell me why. Everything's all... What's the matter?
You tell him, Delbert.
Louis.
Well?
Louis. They hanged you half an hour ago.
The title of today's Quiet Please story is Calling All Souls. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper. And the man who spoke to you was Ernest Chappell.
And Kermit Murdoch played Delbert. Harris and Etta were respectively Ralph Schoolman and Mary Patton. Mr. Cooper and I are very grateful for the superb efforts of Albert Berman, who was always responsible for our Quiet Please music. Now, for a word about next week, here is our writer-director, Willis Cooper.
Thank you for listening to Quiet Please again. Next week I have a story for you called Adam and the Darkest Day.
And so, until next week at the same time, I'm quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
A listening reminder. David Harding Counter-Spy is a name that means action, excitement, drama each time his efficient law enforcement organization exposes another racket. Hear Counter-Spy this afternoon over these ABC stations. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
WJZ, New York's first station. WJZ AM and FM.
It's intermission time at the Bah Ghoulie Show. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for some hot popcorn? How's about your favorite soft drinks, which are sparkling cold? And there's all kinds of candy to tempt you. It's radio time, folks. Enjoy the rest of the program. This episode of the Bah Ghoulie Show is brought to you by Waddle's Tunes over at Channel Watchwaddle. Oh, that's where I left that bar of soap.
Hands are dirty, don't be a dope. Clean them up with bubbly soap.
Now that's some clean humor.
Worshippers of Halloween, admirers of the ghostly and the ghastly. Welcome to my chamber of horrors. And let me tell you a terrible tale of terror. My wife will be so pleased you've come. I'm sure she'll want to serve you for dinner. Come over here by the coffin, won't you? But leave your coat on. I'm going to tell some chilling stories tonight. bone-chilling on this Halloween. That's right. Bundle up tight. It would really be a pity if you caught a cold, because then you might leave here coughing. Or should I say, in a coffin. And now, friend, turn your lights down low. If you have the nerve. In fact, turn them out. I dare. And listen to a classic tale of terror. The Waxwork. No actors other than Mr. William Conrad. Oh, yes, originally there were 15, but 14 died in rehearsal. Leaving only Mr. Conrad to carry on. So here he is. In the Waxwork.
While the uniformed attendants of Mariner's Waxworks were ushering the last stragglers through the great glass-paneled double doors, the manager sat in his office interviewing Raymond Hewson. The manager was speaking.
Oh, there's nothing new in your request, sir. And in fact, we refuse it to different people, mostly young bloods who've tried to make bets about 3 times a week, I should say. We have nothing to gain, something to lose by letting people spend the night in our murderer's den. If I allowed it and some young idiot lost his senses, what would be my position, eh? But your being a journalist somewhat alters the case.
Hewson smiled. I suppose you mean that journalists have no senses to lose.
No, of course not. But one imagines them to be responsible people. Besides, we have something to gain here. Publicity and advertisement.
Yes, exactly, said Hewson. And there I thought we might come to terms. The manager smiled.
Yes, I know what's coming. You want to be paid twice, do you? You know, it used to be said years ago that Madame Tussaud would give a man £100 for sleeping alone in the Chamber of Horrors. Well, I hope you don't think that we've made any such offer. What is your paper, Mr. Hewson?
Well, I'm freelancing at present, sir, working on space for several papers. However, I would find no difficulty in getting the story printed. I'm sure the Morning Echo would use it like a shot. A night with Mariner's murderers. No live paper could turn it down, sir.
Yes. How do you propose to treat it?
Well, I shall make it gruesome, of course. Gruesome with just a saving touch of humor.
The manager nodded and offered Hewson his cigarette case. Very well, Mr. Hewson. You get your story printed in the Morning Echo, and there'll be a £5 note waiting for you when you care to come and call for it. But, first of all, you realize it's no small ordeal that you're proposing to undertake. I'd like to be quite sure about you. I'd like you to be quite sure about yourself. I own I shouldn't care to take it on. I should hate having to sleep down there, alone, among them.
Why? Asked Hewson.
Oh, I don't know. Isn't any reason, I suppose. I don't believe in ghosts. If I did, I should expect them to haunt the scene of their crimes or the spots where their bodies were laid, instead of a cellar which happens to contain their waxwork effigies. Well, it's just that I couldn't sit alone among them all night with their seeming to stare at me in the way they do. After all, they represent the lowest and the most appalling types of humanity. Well, the whole atmosphere of the place is unpleasant. And if you're susceptible to atmosphere, sir, I warn you that you're in for a very uncomfortable night.
Hewson had known that from the moment when the idea first occurred to him. His soul sickened at the prospect. But he had a wife and a family to keep. So here was a chance not to be missed. The price of a special story in the Morning Echo with a £5 note to add to it. Besides, if he wrote the story well, it might lead to an offer of regular employment. The manager smiled at him and rose.
Well, I think the last of the people must have gone by now. Oh, there is one condition I'm afraid I must impose upon you, sir. I must ask you not to smoke. We had a fire scare down in the murderer's den this evening. I don't know who gave the alarm, but whoever it was a false one. Fortunately, there were very few people down there at the time, or there might have been a panic. Now, if you're ready, we'll make a move. He led the way through an open barrier and down ill-lit stone stairs, which conveyed a sinister impression of giving access to a dungeon. In a passage at the bottom were a few preliminary horrors, such as relics of the Inquisition, a rack taken from a medieval castle, branding irons, thumb screws, and other mementos of man's cruelty to man. Beyond the passage was the murderer's den. It was a room of irregular shape, with a vaulted roof and dimly lit by electric lights, burning behind inverted bowls of frosted glass. It was, by design, an eerie and uncomfortable chamber, a chamber whose atmosphere invited its visitors to speak in whispers. The waxwork murderers stood on low pedestals with numbered tickets at their feet. Recent notorieties rubbed dusty shoulders with the old favorites. Fertel, the murderer of Weir, stood as if frozen in the act of making a shop window gesture to young Bywaters. And there was Lefroy, the poor half-baked little snob who killed for gain so that he might ape the gentleman. Within 5 yards of him sat Mrs. Thompson, that erotic romanticist hanged to propitiate British middle-class matronhood. Charles Peace, the only member of the vile company who looked uncompromisingly and entirely evil, sneered across a gangway at Norman Thorne. Brown and Kennedy, the two most recent additions, stood between Mrs. Dyer and Patrick Mahan. The manager, walking around with Houston, pointed out several of the more interesting of these unholy notabilities. That's Crippen. I expect you recognize him, insignificant little beast who looked as if he couldn't tread on a worm. Oh, and that's Armstrong. That looks like a decent, harmless country gentleman, doesn't he? And there's old Vaquier. You can't miss him, of course, because of his beard. And this one... Who's that? Houston asked in a whisper. Here, come here. Have a good look at him. This is our star turn. He's the only one of the bunch that hasn't been hanged. The figure which Houston had indicated was that of a small, slight man, not much more than 5 feet in height. It wore little waxed mustaches, large spectacles, and a caped coat. There was something so exaggeratedly French in its appearance that it reminded Houston of a stage caricature. He could not have said precisely why the mild-looking face seemed to him so repellent, but he'd already recoiled a step, and even in the manager's company it cost him an effort to look again. But who is he asked. That, said the manager, is Dr. Baudet. Houston shook his head doubtfully. I think I've heard the name, but I forget in connection with what. The manager smiled. You'd remember better if you were a Frenchman. You know, for some long while, that man was the terror of Paris. He carried on his work of healing by day and of throat-cutting by night. Why, he killed for the sheer devilish pleasure it gave him to kill, and always in the same way, with a razor. After his last crime, he left a clue behind him which set the police upon his track. Oh, but he was much too clever for them. When he realized that the coils were closing about him, he mysteriously disappeared. And ever since, the police of every civilized country have been looking for him. There's no doubt that he managed to make away with himself, and by some means which has prevented his body coming to light. 1 or 2 crimes of a similar nature have taken place since his disappearance, but he is believed almost for certain to be dead, and the experts believe these recrudescences to be the work of an imitator. It's queer, isn't it, Miss Houston? How every notorious murderer has imitators. Houston shuddered and fidgeted with his feet. I don't like him at all. What eyes he's got. Yes, this figure's a little masterpiece. You find the eyes bite into you, huh? Well, that's excellent realism, then, for Baudet practiced mesmerism, and was supposed to mesmerize his victims before dispatching them. Indeed, had he not done so, it's impossible to see how so small a man could have done his ghastly work. There were never any signs of struggle. I thought I saw him move, said Houston with a catch in his voice. The manager smiled. You'll have more than one optical illusion before the night's out, I expect, sir. Well, I'm sorry I can't give you any more light because all the lights are on. For obvious reasons, we keep this place as gloomy as possible, eh? Well, Mr. Houston, good night. Houston wheeled a swivel chair, a heavy one upholstered in plush, a little way down the central gangway, and deliberately turned it so that its back was toward the effigy of Dr. Baudet. For some undefined reason, he liked Dr. Baudet a great deal less than his companions. Busying himself with arranging the chair, he was almost lighthearted. But when the manager's footfalls had died away and a deep hush stole over the chamber, he realized that he had no slight ordeal before him. Among the many figures standing in stiff, unnatural poses, the effigy of the dreadful little doctor stood out with a queer prominence, perhaps because of a steady beam of light beat straight down upon it. Houston flinched before the parody of mildness which some fiendishly skilled craftsman had managed to convey in wax, met the eyes for one agonized second, and then turned again to face the other direction. He's only a waxwork like the rest of you, Houston muttered defiantly. You're all only waxworks. They were only waxworks, yes. But waxworks don't move. Oh, not that he had seen the least movement anywhere, but it struck him that in the moment or two while he'd looked behind him, there had been the least subtle change in the grouping of the figures in front. Crippen, for instance, seemed to have turned at least 1 degree to the left. Or, thought Houston, perhaps the illusion was due to the fact that he had not slewed his chair back into its exact original position. Oh, but there were Brown and Kennedy, too. Surely one of them had moved his hands. Houston held his breath for a moment, and then drew his courage back to him as a man lifts a weight. He took a notebook from his pocket and wrote quickly, Memo, deathly silence and unearthly stillness of figures, like being at bottom of sea. Hypnotic eyes, Dr. Baudet. Figures seem to move when not being watched. He closed the book suddenly over his fingers and looked around quickly and awfully over his right shoulder. He had neither seen nor heard a movement, but it was as if some sixth sense had made him aware of one. He looked straight into the vapid countenance of Lefroy, which smiled vacantly back as if to say, it wasn't I. No, of course it wasn't he, or any of them. It was his own nerves. Or was it? Then why all that silent unrest about him? A subtle something in the air which did not quite break the silence and happened, whichever way he looked, just beyond the boundaries of his vision. He swung round quickly to encounter the mild but baleful stare of Dr. Baudet. And then, without warning, he jerked his head back to stare straight at Crippen. He'd nearly caught Crippen that time. You'd better be careful, Crippen, and all the rest of you. If I do see one of you move, I'll smash you to pieces. Do you hear? He ought to go, he told himself. Already he'd experienced enough to write his story, or 10 stories for the matter of that. Well, then, why not go? The Morning Echo would be none the wiser as to how long he'd stayed, nor would it care so long as his story was a good one. Yes, but the manager... One never knew. Perhaps the manager would quibble over that 5-pound note which he needed so badly. He wondered if his wife were asleep, or if she were lying awake and thinking of him. She'd laugh when he told her that he'd imagined...
This was a little too much. It was bad enough that the waxwork effigies of murderers should move when they weren't being watched, but it was intolerable that they should breathe. Somebody was breathing. Or was it his own breath which sounded to him as if it came from a distance? He sat rigid, listening, straining, until he exhaled with a long sigh. His own breath, after all. Or, if not, something had divined that he was listening and had ceased breathing simultaneously. Houston turned his head swiftly around and looked all about him out of haggard and hunted eyes. Everywhere his gaze encountered the vacant waxen faces. And everywhere he felt that by just some least fraction of a second he had missed seeing a movement of hand or foot, a silent opening, a compression of lips, a flicker of eyelids, a look of human intelligence now smoothed out. They were like naughty children in a classroom, whispering, fidgeting, and laughing behind their teacher's back, but blandly innocent when his gaze was turned upon them. No, this would not do. This distinctly would not do. He must clutch at something, grip with his mind upon something which belonged essentially to the workaday world, to the daylight London streets. He was Raymond Houston, an unsuccessful journalist, a living and breathing man, and these figures grouped around him were only dummies, so they could neither move nor whisper. Oh, what did it matter if they were supposed to be lifelike effigies of murderers? They were only made of wax and sawdust and stood there for the entertainment of morbid sightseers and orange-sucking trippers. Oh, that was better. Now, what was that funny story which somebody had told him in the Falstaff Club yesterday? Oh, yes. He recalled part of it, but not all. For the gaze of Dr. Baudet urged, challenged, and finally compelled him to turn. Houston half turned, and then swung his chair so as to bring him face to face with the wearer of those dreadful hypnotic eyes. His own eyes were dilated, and his mouth at first set in a grin of terror, lifted at the corners in a snarl, and then Houston spoke and woke 100 sinister echoes. You moved! Yes, you did, you moved! I saw you! You moved! Then he sat quite still, staring straight before him, like a man found frozen in the Arctic snows. Dr. Baudet's movements were leisurely. He stepped off his pedestal with the mincing care of a lady alighting from a bus. The platform stood about 2 feet from the ground. Above the edge of it, a plush-covered rope hung in arc-like curves. Dr. Baudet lifted up the rope until it formed an arch for him to pass under, stepped off the platform, and sat down on the edge, facing Houston. Then he nodded and smiled and said,
Good evening. I need hardly tell you that not until I overheard the conversation between you and the worthy manager of this establishment did I suspect that I should have the pleasure of a companion here for the night. You cannot move or speak without my bidding, but you can hear me perfectly well. Something tells me that you are, shall I say, nervous? My dear sir, I have no illusions. I am not one of these contemptible effigies miraculously come to life. I am Dr. Baudet himself.
He paused, coughed, and shifted his legs.
Pardon me, but I am a little stiff. Please, let me explain. Circumstances with which I need not fatigue you have made it desirable that I should live in England. I was close to this building this evening when I saw a policeman. Regarding me, I thought a little too curiously. I guessed that he intended to follow and perhaps ask me embarrassing questions. So I mingled with the crowd and came in here. A coin bought my admission to the chamber in which we now meet, and an inspiration showed me a certain means of escape. I raised a cry of fire, and when all the fools had rushed to the stairs, I stripped my effigy of the caped coat which you behold me wearing, donned it, hid my effigy under the platform at the back, and took its place on the pedestal. The manager's description of me, which I had the embarrassment of being compelled to overhear, was biased, but not altogether inaccurate. Clearly, I am not dead, although it is as well that the world think otherwise, no? His account of my hobby, which I have indulged for years, although through necessity less frequently of late, was remaining true. For you see, the world is divided between collectors and non-collectors. With the non-collectors, we are not concerned, eh? The collectors collect anything according to their individual taste, from money to cigarette cards, from malls to matchboxes. I collect throats.
He paused again and regarded Houston's throat with interest, mingled with disfavor.
I am obliged for the chance which brought us together tonight, and perhaps it would seem ungrateful to complain. From motives of personal safety, my activities have been somewhat curtailed of late years, and I am glad of this opportunity of gratifying my somewhat unusual whim. But you, sir, you have such a skinny neck. If you will overlook a personal remark, I should never have selected you from choice. I like men with thick necks. Thick, red necks.
He fumbled in an inside pocket and took out something which he tested against a wet forefinger, and then proceeded to pass gently to and fro across the palm of his left hand.
This is a little French razor. The blade, you will observe, is very narrow. They do not cut very deep, but deep enough. In just one little moment, you shall see for yourself. And now, I shall ask you the little civil question of all the polite barbers. Does the razor suit you, sir?
He rose up, a diminutive but menacing figure of evil, and approached Houston with a silent, furtive step of a hunting panther.
You will have the goodness to raise your chin a little, eh? Thank you. And a little more, just a little more. Thank you. Merci, monsieur. Merci, merci. Merci.
Over one end of the chamber was a thick skylight of frosted glass, which by day let in a few sickly and filtered rays from the floor above. After sunrise, these began to mingle with the subdued light from the electric bulbs. And this mingled illumination added a certain ghastliness to a scene which needed no additional touch of horror. The waxwork figures stood apathetically in their places, waiting to be admired or execrated by the crowds who would presently wander fearfully among them. In their midst, in the center gangway, Houston sat still, leaning far back in his swivel chair. His chin was up-tilted as if he were waiting to receive attention from a barber. And although there was not a scratch upon his throat, nor anywhere upon his body, he was cold and dead. Dr. Baudet, on his pedestal, watched the dead man unemotionally. He did not move, nor was he capable of motion. But then, after all, he was only a waxwork.
Well, friend, I do hope that you savored our gruesome little tale of terror and tallow.
called the Waxwork. I just wonder if you had the nerve to listen with your lights turned off. If you did, it's time to turn them on again. Go ahead. Just don't sit there. Get up. Well, what do you know? Stone dead.
Thank you for watching. And don't forget to go over to Channel Watchwaddle for their midnight spook show screening of The Haunted Skeletons. Presented in Skull Vision. Hope to see you all there.
Huh?